It's about time because we're going there.
Do you feel like you're in a pivot point in life? Do you feel like you're at a crossroads or maybe an inflection point that you didn't see yourself being at? Or maybe you feel like you have limitless opportunities and you are stuck because you don't know which path to go down. Over the course of the next 3 episodes, I get to sit down with DeAnza Jarrett from Paterson Center and discuss life planning, and strategic ways to build out how to make good decisions, not just for the now, but for the future. Over the course of these 3 episodes, we're going to be talking about core values and how they impact the relationships that we're in. We're talking about replenishment cycles. Are you tired or are you just not being replenished? And the most important thing that we get to discuss is, why do we need this? Why is this important? I hope over the course of these next 3 episodes that your life is impacted and that you are better because you are here. Love you, and I hope you enjoy the episodes. As promised, I am going to open up a piece of my life that I'm very excited to talk about because there's been enough distance and healing and work that I want to invite people into. Perhaps you might be walking through a pivot point in life. Maybe you're questioning your calling. Maybe you know that there's something new that's brewing, but you don't necessarily have direction, and you don't have to do this alone. In fact, in my restoration process that I planned for my life, I got to meet this amazing woman who God brought back into my life. And so Deonza, friend, coach, life planner extraordinaire, can I just say thank you for flying to California for the conversations that we will be having over the next 3 episodes.
It is so good to be with you, Bianca. Thank you for welcoming me to rainy California.
I know. Okay, this is the sad part. It is raining today, and you're from Colorado. And one of the things that I'm very proud about is our weather, and yet I'm giving you gray and cloudy and rain. So I'm sorry, friend.
It's okay. I'll take it.
Okay, so anyone that's listened to the podcast knows that 2021, 2022, and 2023 were 3 of the hardest years of my life. And walking through a restoration plan that I kind of put into place, I didn't know that the Lord was going to bring you back into my life. Before we talk about kind of what a God-sent angel you were in my life in such a hard season, I want people to know a little bit about you and the work that you do at Paterson, and how this isn't just because you're a good person or a good friend or skilled at what you do. Like, you are passionate about this. So for our podcast audience, I don't just want to know your work resume. Talk to me a little bit about where did this passion to help people distill their life and go through a process of healing to point their lives in a new direction. Where did this begin for you?
Oh, I would take it all the way back to 6th grade if I'm really tracing it all the way back.
Okay.
But I think in college, it was this understanding of I have a heart that beats for women and seeing them come alive to God's purpose. And I didn't have the language for it then. But now, fast forward the tape, we won't age ourselves, but a few years, it's been really amazing to see the Lord's hand and have him help me with those words and help me step into these spaces where now I do get to sit with women, but with a structured process. So before, I just had a line item in my college budget that was coffee. And I had a lot of coffee dates with a lot of women. And I felt like it was this beautiful space of ministry without it being in the walls of a church.
Love that.
And today I still get to do the same work.
One thing I want to put as a caveat, which I love, is that you aren't just working with Christian people. You are working you are helping to consult with businesses, organizations, and individuals.
That's right.
And some are Christians and followers of Jesus, but a lot of them are not.
Yes.
And so for those on the podcast that just feel like, oh, I don't know if this is going to get too religious. Listen, the principles that we are going to discuss today there are so many dovetail into biblical principles. However, the content that you guys have put together and you personally have helped craft for Paterson is changing lives. Mm-hmm. And whether those lives are impacted by Jesus or not, this information is gold. So we're going to actually walk through in each of these episodes some of these key components to life plan and StratOps. And at the end, I'm going to we'll give you space to talk specifically in the nitty-gritty of that. But let me start off with kind of how we connected. So I heard about Paterson. And everyone who I had met had gone through Life Plan or StratOps had such amazing things to say about it. It just felt like something that was really far away from me and something I couldn't afford. And I think this is going to be important because people are going to hear this and they're like, wow, that's just going to take lots of money. It's an investment. Well, first of all, it's not lots of money. It's an investment. Mm-hmm. And if it's something that you're serious about, you have to make sacrifices to get those things done in your life. So we first connected via email in 2019. You reminded me of this. I thought it was 2018, but you were right. It was 2019. And we were thinking about doing something. At the time, I was married. So, and I knew that there was stuff that was going on in our marriage, and I wanted us to do this together. And then COVID happened. And then we just stopped talking. I think it was just kind of like run for the hills. What is going on? And then in 2024, correct?
Yes.
2024, I was speaking at your home church in Colorado. And out of nowhere, you reached out to me. You had no idea what was going on in my life. And just for context, for you and then for our listeners, I privately was mourning the death of my marriage. Privately, I was questioning, should I continue to be a pastor? Should I lead this community? Privately, I was thinking, who am I? I've lost myself. I'm not a wife anymore. Am I still a mom? Is my ministry call gone because of this stain in my story and this person that I had spent so much time with and loved and covered for so long? And when you reached out to me, we met at the Westin in Boulder, Colorado. Wait, was it Colorado Springs or Boulder?
Denver.
Right
Denver. There at the airport.
Right at the airport.
Yes.
And you came and you met me in the lobby. And I want people to, and I think over the next 3 episodes, people are going to get to see your tender heart. But here I am, nobody outside of the board, my closest core friends and my family knew what I was walking through. And here I am in a hotel lobby telling you everything. I think any other situation or with any other person, I would have had a vulnerability hangover, and yet I felt so safe with you. So I want people to know you are a safe, trusted person. You don't just do this for me. You do this for corporate CEOs. You do this for stay-at-home moms. You do that across the board. And so I want you to reflect on guiding clients through this process. What and how do people expect, or what should we expect as we enter into deep diving in a pivot moment of life?
Bianca, I so appreciate that you were asking these questions that ultimately were about your identity. And you were in this spiral of, who am I? Yeah. What am I doing in the world? I know that God is good. I remember you said that many, many times. I know that God is good. And there are things that we know are true, and those are those immovable truths that we cling to. And those are few and far between. And so then when we have these things that feel maybe just a little bit more agile in nature, we lose our footing. And it's like, okay, who am I really? Because all of these titles that I've taken on that are not identity, but they're the hats that we wear and the things that we do in life, when those things get dismantled, we get really confused. And so it was so beautiful, I think, that the Lord orchestrated that moment, because it was just this, oh, Bianca's coming to our church. I should probably send her an email and say hi and just let you know that I'm available. And that turned into such a beautiful moment, I think, for both of us. And once that trust is established, then we can go into the depths of story. And really, that's what we're about at Paterson, is through the life plan process, who are you? What are you up to in this world? Who has God uniquely created you to be in his identity for you? What heart has he placed inside of you? And then what do you go do with that? And so one of my favorite parts about what we do is that it's not just us sitting with people in their story. I think there's value to that. I think counseling and therapy, as you know, are remarkable tools and resources. And you need a strategy. You have to do something with this information. And so by the time we close out the 2-day process, not only have we gathered perspective, which you and I will talk about today, but what does it look like for us to then take action on that on Monday morning? Because once you're equipped with this truth, it's like, well, now I got to go do something. And how easy was it for you to write that plan once you understood, okay, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing in this world, and I got to get after it.
I want to distill this. I want to make this so clear for listeners who don't understand when they would need this. So you so gently and gingerly stated where I was, but I want to make it real plain. I want to put the cookies on the lower shelf and tell people my life imploded. I walked through the pits of hell. I lost my identity. Actually, I don't want to say I lost my identity. I think I was figuring out who I am in this season.
That's right.
And that's going to resonate with so many people, whether corporate CEOs, stay-at-home moms, or those entering into the entry levels of the workforce. It's these pivot moments that I think are so important, that we lose kind of a sense of self. And so I want to be very clear. If you are listening to this podcast and you are experiencing a loss of self or questioning what is next, these 3 conversations are going to be pivotal to you. Okay, so I have to tell myself a little bit, and you are so good at slowing things down. I walk fast, I talk fast, I eat fast, I live fast, I drive fast, and you're just this zen aura of like, well, let's sit here and process. So I jumped into this process, and I want to be very clear, I did life plan. I did Patterson life plan. I spoke to you. I don't want to kick a dead horse, but maybe people haven't listened to those previous podcasts. I set up a restoration plan for myself. I knew immediately if I'm going to survive and thrive and heal, I need to have a system. I'm not good with strategy. And so my system was, I'm going to go through these 4 intensives over the next 15 months. I didn't know what those were, but I knew I needed quarterly things to kind of check myself. Am I okay? Is this what I'm called to? And then we connected. It was like the Lord had put it together, literally dropped it in my inbox, and it was you. In these 2 days, I walked in and I said, I'm going to figure out my plan. This is what I'm going to do. And like by the end of this, I'm going to have like my life statement. I'm going to figure everything out. And I walked in guns a-blazing. I think I was a little bit surprised at how you just slowed the game down. It's a phrase I use here on staff. We're moving so fast. We're moving at the speed of life that sometimes we miss the process. And so you implemented perspective before planning. Will you walk us through, somebody's listening, having a moment, having a pivot, having a crisis, having a reorientation? How important is the perspective before planning our next steps?
Yeah. So it's interesting, Bianca, you were saying who needs this and who's coming to us. And really, we've boiled it down to 2 pieces. It's vocational clarity. Either I'm stuck in a job that I am completely miserable in, or the world is my oyster and I have so much opportunity. And so Tom would say, success is not unlimited opportunity, but focused possibility. And so people find themselves in one of those 2 camps vocationally, or they're looking for what we would call existential hope. Like, I just got to figure out which way is up. I feel stuck. I feel confused. All of those things are happening. And so, yes, you and I intersected at this space where you were starting to get this perspective that we're talking about, but we run the risk of running through the breakthrough and not spending time to settle in.
Wait, unpack that. We're gonna give some practical handles, but I think that's so good. What does that mean? What does that look like?
We can run right past it. So we're so in search of what's next and what's new and what feels right, and sometimes even what feels strategic.
That's me.
That we move crazy fast. And then when we get there, we don't even know what our why is anymore.
Jesus.
Because we value efficiency and effectiveness, yes?
Why are you telling my business right now? I think that's going to resonate deeply with a lot of people.
It's true. Yeah. And it's a part of our American culture. And so this idea of perspective before planning really came from when Tom Patterson, who gave us these tools. So Bianca, these go back to the 1970s. This is not 4 of us in our 40s sitting in a basement thinking, how can we help people with their life and their business? These are trusted processes that we feel have been gifted to us by God. If you ask Tom Patterson, hey, Tom, who wrote your life plan? He'd say, well, God wrote my life plan. But he sat down at his typewriter and asked these big questions of the Lord. And so out of that was birthed this life plan process. And so there's different principles that are embedded into Patterson process, whether it's StratOp for your business or a life plan for your life. But we have to slow down and get perspective before we plan. So as Tom was traveling to China and he was helping this guy, Bianca, you guys go to the website, watch the story about Tom, because he was a remarkable man and he loved Jesus. And so the combination of those 2 things you can only imagine.
And for those listening, let me interrupt. So sorry. The link to Patterson Center will be in the show notes, but I also want you to mention, can you just put the URLs out there right now?
Yeah.
And we'll put it at the end as well.
Yes.
But how can we see Tom's story?
Yes. Please go to patersongroup.com. It's with 1 T. And then all of the resources that we'll provide for these podcasts will be available at patersongroup.com/Bianca.
Hey.
So head over there, get everything that you need. But so Tom's commissioned by the Reagan administration to help China with their foreign economy. This is the kind of guy that we're talking about. And when he's there, he says, they take a different approach to problem solution. So again, you and I, Western part of the world, we want to move really fast. We want to get from A to B as quickly as possible. Tom was curious to know why it felt like it was taking so long to get to solution. And it was because they were picking up these different vantage points of perspective and then arriving at the conclusion. So imagine this ascending spiral. And then we get to that peak of clarity and breakthrough. Don't run past the breakthrough, arrive there. And then from there, you have this foundation of understanding to say, Deonza, I must, and all the shoulds and oughts go away. And so then we step into things that we feel like we must do, the things that we have to move forward with. And so that's the whole idea of perspective before planning.
So I'm going to, and we both openly discussed that there's nothing in my life plan that is off the table for this podcast. I want people to know how hard it was and what is required. When we talk about the ascending, you said this, but I really want people to understand. It's the ascending upwards where the shoulds and oughts are removed because the have to appears. Having gone through the process, and I'm going to be very honest, I said this earlier, but I need people to feel the weight of my life was in it was in crisis. I feel myself getting emotional, but okay, I've like numbed it in my throat. We're going to be okay. I lost everything. I lost my home. I lost my husband. I lost my identity as stepmom. I lost all my money. And I just wanted the pain to go away. And so I think I walked in to have a conversation with you and say, give me the plan for the pain to go away. And what we did in that time, in that space where we connected, I sat with the pain and I identified the pain. Upward cycle. And I know that there's people that attend Revere Church, and I hope that they hear my heart behind this. But the number one question that I walked in and unknowingly and unaware that I need to address was, am I a pastor? Is leading the church for me? Am I capable? I felt called. I really questioned capability. I questioned ability, and I really questioned the gender question. Like, should. And so the shoulds and oughts melted away. And at that moment when I met with you, my friends, my family, and the board at the time advocated for me to leave. And going through this process, what emerged was that I have to. There's no other options. So what I want us to do is, can we walk through the 4 helpful lists that you guys have articulated so beautifully, and our listeners, please, I want all of our listeners to know the hard work and the free resources that Patterson put together for our podcast community. This is free 99. I need someone to know, if you do nothing else, download these free resources because they will help you. If you put in the work will serve you. So this is going to be in the show notes, but walk us through the 4 helpful lists. And then as people download the PDF and do this work, they are getting a distilled version, not an exhaustive, but a distilled version of what I walk through for our podcast community.
Yeah, I think it's so great, Bianca, to make these types of resources available because it gives you a glimpse into the work that we do. And it will be a little bit different because you're self-guiding the process versus you and I sitting down and having a conversation. Yeah. So imagine these pieces as almost pre-work to your life plan. So if you decided, yes, let's sit down and let's do the 2 full day thing, check, you already got the first part out of the way. You've gone through 4 helpful lists. You did the pre-work. So Bianca, you and I sit down in the room. You have these objectives. You want to plan. I acknowledge, say that's great. And let's get the lay of the land. What's really happening in life today? And not as a way to say, now I'm going to stare into your soul and you're going to tell me everything, but in a way that says, I need you to be honest with yourself about what's happening right now. Yeah. And so we have this gift of this really great, literally 4 helpful lists. So we'll give you all the framework. We'll give you the template that you need. But the reality is you can open up a journal And right at the top of the page, what is right? And the next page, what is wrong? What is confused? And what is missing? So in what we'll provide, we break it down into also the life domains. So let me back up first to talk about life domains, because I think this is really important.
Great.
People come in and they say, I want vocational clarity. Am I a leader? Question mark. We hear that a lot, Bianca.
Really?
Yes.
Even for StratOps, which is more focused on the business side of things?
On the StratOp side, they're looking for help strategically, typically.
Okay.
And then we say strategically, operationally, financially, how does all of this integrate? Then what's the plan moving forward that the team has had a chance to voice into? So
Great.
StratOp looks a little bit different.
Okay.
But we still start with 4 helpful lists on the Paterson side
Okay.
of StratOp. And so we'll sit down with the team in the room and have this moment of let's all be honest, and also let's all put on our owner of the shop cap. What do we see? What's going on today? So when you and I sat down, I said, okay, Bianca, yes, all of these things. Who are you? What are you up to? What's happening with the church? But let's look more globally at life today.
Yeah.
So the first thing that we really struggle with, I think especially as women, is this idea of my personal domain. So who am I physically, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually? Not as a stepmom, not as a wife, not as a leader of a church, but we really drilled into who is Bianca and what's going on in that reality today. So then beyond personal, we have family, which gets a little complicated. As you know, we don't choose all of our family. Some people are chosen. Some are that family of origin, as we're now familiar with. But who are the relevant players in our family today? And then moving into vocation, that one oftentimes seems clear, but the reality is our vocation starts early on.
Yeah.
So there's these little seeds that get planted when we're 2, 3, 4. I had a gal the other day and she said, I lined up all my stuffed animals and I was just preaching the word of God to them. She was 3. That's vocation showing up real early.
Yeah.
Or when you're playing with your sister and it's like, okay, so we're going to play architectural firm and I'm going to be the owner and you're going to be my executive assistant who's helping me. Those things show up really early in our story.
Okay.
And then vocation goes beyond retirement. So there isn't a day when we hang up a hat and say, I did the thing and now let's blow out the candles. But more importantly, it's that extension of what God's called us to in the space of our 9 to 5, essentially. And so sometimes that looks like giving back in our later years. So that's vocation. And then community is everybody else. So this is church, colleagues, friends, neighbors, that whole big picture of community. So tuck that away as you guys are thinking through these 4 helpful lists. And then let's identify in each of those domains what is right. What's the thing that you want to optimize that's going well? It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does feel like it's good and it's settled and you want it to keep moving in the right direction. So we say, what is right? These are the things that we want to optimize. Then we can move into what is wrong. So wrong can have a negative connotation. Yes, we have habits, we have things that we do that ultimately are not going to serve us well. But what is wrong just needs to be changed. So it could even be the square peg in the round hole. So let's go back to a vocational example again. Let's say you're in this position and you would say, people would line up around the block to do the thing that I get to do, and it doesn't feel right today. So it's not that the work is wrong or that the opportunity is wrong. It just doesn't feel right to that person today. Other times it's major life things like I was diagnosed with MS, maybe somebody might say in a life plan. Yeah, that doesn't feel right. Let's put that in the wrong category. So again, we're going through personal, family, vocation, community. What doesn't feel right today? Capture those things. The next is going to be, what do we need to clarify? These things feel confusing. They often show up in the form of a question. Who am I? Am I supposed to be leading?
Yep.
What do I do?
Yep.
All of those questions that are swirling, we capture those in confused. So those things need clarity. Confused, I need clarity here. And then last but not least, what is missing? So we want to add these in. These might be the things that we've had in the past. Say you had this beautiful hobby of pottery and you've really missed pottery. Put it in the what's missing. Other times they feel really big. So when I went through the life plan process initially, I'm 20 years old, not quite, I was a little older than that, but in my 20s, working at OtterBox. So we were manufacturing phone cases. I loved my job, Bianca. I loved everything that I was doing. And also, God, where is this man? Because I want to get married someday.
Yeah.
And he is nowhere to be found. I know all the men in this college town that I grew up in. I don't think he's here. He was there funny enough. But that was the thing that felt missing was my own family. So sometimes these things can feel really big and weighty and the longings of our heart. Other times they might feel fairly miscellaneous, like, oh, I'd love to get back into pottery again. So that's the 4 helpful list. So as we're breaking that down, it gives us the opportunity to slow down, as we were just talking about, and get perspective. What's happening in my life today? And we're not doing anything to fix them, which is sometimes frustrating.
That was the hard part for me. That was the hard part for me. So there was a lot, and I want to again. I think that I recently discovered later on in life, recently the last 2 years, that I have ADHD and dyslexia, and so I love reiterating things and giving practical visual points. And so because we've done this process, I want someone to hear and not feel overwhelmed. For somebody who is not an auditory processor and maybe need like a visual, I am going to weave in a little bit of the journey that you walked me through that might feel helpful for people. So the first one was personal, and right, it was personal.
Personal,
yes.
Yep.
So for my personal, I said, okay, what is right? I have been really taking care of my body. And I was just super committed to health and wholeness. My word for that year was whole, and I had shared that with you. And I was like proud of the work that I have done, not proud of the weight loss, though I did lose weight. I was proud of the commitment to this totality of wholeness in my life. What was right? I felt like there was also this healing that was taking place. And I realized that counseling and therapy were critical to that, but the action and strategy was actually in my missing category, which was really interesting. I got to walk through that with you. So those were like the personal, like what was going right. What was wrong was I was experiencing some health things that I couldn't figure out what they were. And I knew that was like part of the journey. Personal, there was some things going on with my family, with one of my siblings that was like very hard. I'm speeding through these. We spent a lot of time really distilling that. And here, actually, before we go on, how long, there's my ADHD kicking in again. So my 17 buckets of my brain going. So for somebody that's listening and they're thinking right, wrong, missing, confused, or right, wrong, confused, and missing, how long will this process take? I want people to have like a sense of how long there's like, we'll come back to that. I just had to say it because I know that my brain will forget it. Great. So that's like the personal, the vocational. What was right vocationally? I was discovering that I actually could lead alone. And I had listened to so many voices say that you can't. So I was very proud of the community that was being forged and fostered. And just because something is good, that doesn't mean that it was like right for me. And so I was able to identify it as a right, but it was also kind of like a confused. This is all that, am I a leader? Should I? So it's in my confused category as well. So personal, vocational, and then what was?
Community.
So really asking a lot of questions. And I felt because of the things that I had walked through, there was such a great sense of like community. And I am so grateful for my core friends. Also realizing who was in that community that needed to not be there. And then lastly, so it's personal, vocational, community, and then family was the last one. And that was, I think, the hardest one for me because I felt like I lost my stepson and my stepdaughter. Praise God, I have a great relationship with them still. And I could say a year removed from the moment that we connected, I am so grateful that they're in my life. Also, a restoring of trust that on this side I get to see. And so I wanted to walk people through like a little bit of like what I discovered in that process with you. But as somebody downloads the PDF and does the work, how much time should they set aside for right, wrong, confused, and missing?
I would say at least an hour.
Great.
So imagine that you take about 15 minutes with each question and take a walk. It doesn't have to be in a one setting. While we've created the worksheet, it's really intended to be a perspective resource. Mm-hmm. So we can ask these questions, and you can do this with your teams. So you can circle up, let's get a huddle going, write it on the whiteboard, what's right, wrong, confused, and missing, and just start capturing that information. Date night, it's a great time to ask these questions.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
What is right, wrong, confused, and missing about us?
Wow. That doesn't lead to fights?
Oh, it might, but do
Okay.
it in public.
I love that.
Don't do it at home on the
love
kitchen
that.
table. Take it out to a restaurant.
For somebody listening that maybe isn't in a pivot point or inflection point for their own life, I think I want to also add this on a vocational level. I do this right, wrong, confused, and missing every Monday with our production team at church.
Amazing.
I'm telling you, the things that I learned in this training, it wasn't just for the life plan side of things. I'm leading a fast-growing organization. I also have In the Name of Love, which is my 501c3 nonprofit organization. And when I did my end-of-year evaluation, I did this with producer Madi. What's right, what's wrong, what's missing, what's confused. I always say missing and confused. I don't know why. I know it's confused and missing. My bad, but whatever. It's the dyslexia. Okay, so as we kind of wrap up, I wanted this, one, for people to identify, am I at a pivot point? Am I at an inflection point? Or do I have unlimited options in front of me that I feel confused on? Number two, I want them to go through the exercise of what's right, what's wrong, what's confused, and what's missing. I want people to do the work of identifying, if this is not for me personally, could this be for me professionally? And I love how you categorize the 4 areas that we should go through, because a lot of times we can have a great health with our community and a deep unhealth with things going on personally, or great success professionally and then horrible output going on with family. And so I want people to go through this process. Now, for people who feel maybe excited about this or want to know more, or maybe feel overwhelmed and they need to tacitly go to a website, tell me, now is where I want us to talk about Patterson. StratOp's life plan. Can you, in short form, give us a little bit about the work that Patterson does, Patterson with 1 T, that work that Patterson does, and then ways for people to connect before we dive into kind of wrapping up and going into our next episode?
Yeah. So at Patterson, we're really about purposeful impact. That's what we've boiled it down to. And so we want to see businesses, organizations, individuals, families going out and making their greatest contribution in the world, and we want to partner in that. And so on the StratOp side, if you are a key leader and you are looking for clarity in your business and you need someone to come in and say, I'm going to ask questions and I want you to answer them. We take a Socratic approach. So we're not consultants in the way of saying, tell me everything that you know, and then I'm going to tell you everything to do. But instead, we put you in the hot seat, just like I did for you in Life Plan, and say, okay, business leader, tell me what's right, wrong, confused, and missing about your organization today. Let's talk about where you're headed. Let's talk about the financials of the organization. And so it's threading together strategy, operations, and financials, and creating a strategy that isn't just a strategy from on high, that's then shopped around to everybody in the organization and saying, okay, here's the plan. This is what we're going to do moving forward. But instead, getting the right people in the room and saying, what do we do with this perspective? And now let's create real action initiatives with next steps, dates. Let's assign a champion internally to then help us move this forward. And so in both StratOp and Life Plan, these are not one-time events. So we're not going to come in and in 3 days, you're done. And the same with Life Plan. We're not going to spend 2 days and then say, okay, Bianca, you're done. Now you have this renewable resource that you can continue to use for years to come. And so the Life Plan side of it, we've alluded to it, but I don't know that we've given great concrete, what is this thing exactly? What do we do with this?
Yes.
So it's about 19 constructs, as you know.
Yes.
And I'm guiding you through the process. And I'm asking you, Bianca, tell me about, we'll talk about core values. Tell me about your core values. What are those riverbanks that are helping to guide your life? We go through this whole exercise that takes about an hour and a half, and we identify core talents.
Which was hard for me because I don't feel talented. And yet going through this process, I'm like, oh, God has gifted me, which is really fun. So carry on. I was
Gifted you.
Yes.
Thank you. And the intersection of talent and heart, which we call purpose.
Yes.
Who are you and what are you doing in this world? And being able to articulate it. So as I was just saying, it was great to feel in my 20s, like I kind of knew what I was up to, but I didn't have the words until Life Plan brought the words to that.
Yes.
So we work through these constructs, not just in a let's fill out the worksheet and then move on to the next thing, but it's gathering that perspective so that from a place of perspective, we can get focused and then become strategic. And that's the part that you were ultimately wanting. And I got so excited for you because I was like, I know we're going to get there. I know we will get there. And it doesn't feel clear in the middle of it, does it?
No.
We're in the middle of day one and we're like, where is this going? Are we going to land the plane? And we do. Every time we land the plane. And so we work through the whole thing. And then you have this renewable resource that, yes, you can use the 4 helpful lists. Yes, you can lean on your core talents. But ultimately, you have this strategic plan with, just as we do in StratOp, action initiatives, next steps, dates. It becomes very practical, tactical. So for those of you who appreciate, I don't just need the big picture vision. That's all great and fine, but I need to know what to do. Then we then write that plan together. And so that's the difference between StratOp and Life Plan, but all founded in the same Patterson principles.
So about when in the height of the chaos of my life, my counselor had said, I need you to write a 2 to 3 sentence, life statement. And the podcast listeners know I get away around October, November by myself. I do like 1 or 2 days completely checked out and then get my word for the year and do an evaluation. And so I'm like, I'm going to write that statement. It sounded simple. It's like, 2 to 3 sentences of my life statement. And tried as I may, I couldn't get there. I felt so overwhelmed. The number one thing about Life Plan that I walked away with is, to this day, I have a life statement. You helped me. The Patterson process helped me identify this is what I'm about. Whether I'm married or single, whether I have money or I'm in debt, whether I'm a biological mom, a stepmom, a foster mom, or a spiritual mom, this is who I am at my core. And no matter what people are going in for, the vocational aspect or the identity aspect, whatever, you're going to walk away with a deep knowing of this is what I'm called to. And so that's why I wanted to do a podcast with you, because some people are going to listen to this and have the ways and the means to actually go and do this process with Patterson. And some people, which I want to encourage, you might not have the finances right now, but these are things that you could do to help push you to a deep sense of awareness of what you're called to vocationally, familially, professionally, spiritually. And so I'm very excited about the next 2 podcast episodes. Can I say, and I need the audience to know, I'm not paying you to be here. You didn't ask for money. You really want to resource people. And I just want to say thank you, and thank you to Patterson, because y'all put together these free resources for our audience. I hope that people go to the website. Again, it's in the show notes. But as we wrap up, can you once again give us the URL that people can go to and get these free resources?
Yes, this page is dedicated to your listeners, Bianca.
I just don't know how special I am. Like, I don't. This is like a heaven's kiss, a God wink. I love you. Thank you. And podcast listeners, I really hope they take advantage of this. Okay, hit me with the URL.
Well, our team was so excited. As soon as I mentioned it to them, they're like, yes, can we please build this? This sounds amazing. Okay. So go to Paterson Group with 1T,
yes,
.com/Bianca.
Wow.
And on that page, you'll find everything that you need. So please, yes, we want to bring value to your listeners. That was really the intent. As I said, Bianca, how can we reach more people with this? And that's always been the heart at Patterson. And I'm really grateful for that, is that there is this genuine spirit of generosity of how do we help people? ? And so as soon as we can offer those resources, we want to make that available. And if you do say, yes, Bianca, Deonza, I want to go through this 2-day process, we invite you to reach out as well. So there will be a spot there on that landing page where they can submit a form, let us know what they're up to in the world, let us know which questions you're asking yourself today. That's so helpful. And then we can just have that intro call and see where it goes from there.
And I want to encourage somebody, maybe the finances aren't there right now. I mean, I am literally the poster child, because I reached out in 2019 and we didn't connect until 2024. And so, I knew in that season of restoration, it was going to cost me finances. And so I want to encourage somebody, maybe it's not right now, but make the phone call, just see what's possible. And these free resources can be kind of the pre-work, like you mentioned earlier. Okay, I want to wrap this up because there's so much still more to unpack. These practical handles that are going to help people in identifying this. But in the next episode, we're talking about the replenishment cycle. So the one phrase that I kept on saying over and over again was, I'm so tired, I'm so tired, I'm so tired, I'm so tired. So for any listener out there that just feels like, my Oura ring tells me I'm getting an 84 sleep score, I'm doing the things that I need to rest, I'm taking the magnesium, why do I feel so dang tired? Tomorrow's episode is really going to address the replenishment cycle. So thank you for being here over these next 3 episodes. I know this is going to be a gift to so many people, men and women, young and old. Thank you, Patterson Center, for the generous help in this. And I can't wait for more conversations to be had. Friends, the best way to get this podcast out to the community is by you sharing this podcast. There's no budget for marketing. Everything is free 99. If this has been a resource to you, I'm going to encourage you. Will you do me a favor? Will you leave a positive review? Will you share this podcast with somebody who needs this in their life? And considering following on social media, stay up to date, or sign up for our newsletter. I like to drop in encouraging words every other week that go directly into your inbox, and you could stay up to date with what's going on, whether it's prison initiatives, what's happening at Revere, what's happening on the podcast, or just a general word of encouragement. I love you. Thank you so much for riding with us, and I can't wait for tomorrow's content.